Hi, Joshy, Jackie, Ruby, and Danny. I am reading a bedtime story tonight, and this one is The Tale of Three Trees. It's a traditional folk tale retold by Angela Elwell Hunt, and the illustrations are by Tom Jonke. I don't know, but this is the front of the book, and I'll read over it really quick. The Tale of Three Trees. The Tale of Three Trees, a traditional folk tale, retold by Angela Elwell Hunt, and illustrations by Tim Yonke. And it looks like it's published by Lion Children's Books. There's text copyright, illustrations copyright, and the design by Gary Gnidivuk. The moral rights of the author and illustrator have been asserted. Okay, so I guess that means that I can't sell it to people or whatever, which I don't intend to do. I'm just reading my little girls a bedtime story. For generations, the tale of three trees has been handed down from parents to children, retold in churches at Christmas and Easter, and even set to the music and sung. As is often true of folk tales, its originator is unknown. To this person, I am deeply grateful. Angela Elwell Hunt. Once upon a mountain top, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. And it shows a picture of the trees and the mushrooms and all kinds of different trees on the mountaintop. And then a picture of the stars, and one of them looks like a chest. The first little tree looked up at the stars, twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold treasure, he said. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. And the next one, there's a lake and a ship down in the lake, and it shows through the three trees the ship down in the lake. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. I guess it was the ocean, not a lake. I want to be a strong sailing ship, he said. I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked on a busy town. I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all, she said. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. Years passed, the rains came, and the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. And there's a picture of the three men with their axes hiking up to the tree. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest, thought the first tree. I shall hold wonderful treasure. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail mighty waters, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship, fit for kings. The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered. With a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. And it shows a picture of the tree getting cut down and falling. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to the shipyard, but no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat. Too small and too weak to sail an ocean or even a river, he was taken to a little lake. Every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. Fish are yummy. Some people like fish. And it shows a picture of him hammering away at the front of the ship. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumber yard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. And it shows a stack of what looks like 4x4s or 6x6s. Many, many days and nights passed. 3 trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world, and it shows them placing a little baby into the wooden manger. On the evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into the old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering, thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, Peace. The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun, and suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. And it shows a picture of the little boat that they built out of the tree, and a small mast, and Jesus standing in the middle of the ship, telling the seas to calm. On Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. And it shows a picture of a man carrying a wooden cross on his back in a crowd yelling. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. And it shows in this picture, through the trees up on the hill, a picture of a manger and the boat and the cross. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world. And it shows the 3 trees at the end of the story. That's the end. Good night, girls. Love you. Sleep tight.